Hello and welcome back. This is going to be another Divine Partnership Coaching video. And I think I'm going to call this one, Worry Not, You Are the Threat. And this is for both new twin, those who are new to meeting their twins. And they've met their twins who are still in a karmic situationship. It could be a relationship, marriage, a family situationship, anything. As well as those of us who have been on this twin flame journey for a long time, and are finding that we're in separation and that our twins are now in situationships with a romantic partner or something that is keeping them from union and keeping us from union. And one of the things that I want you to recognize is, one, usually it's a manifestation of a lack of self-worth and recognizing your own value. And so part of this is it's funny because I can see on the radio it says there's a song called Discover by Ex-Lovers. That's synchronistic right there. Usually it's because we need to heal self-worth. And if you've been in fact, whether you've been with your twin for a while or you just met them, you can look at your previous relationships. Now, if you've had any challenges with worrying about, are they cheating on me? Is somebody else going to be better than me? Why are they giving attention to someone else? Especially if you find that you met them. Like if you're new, as I can remember when I began this journey, going on 20 years ago, my DM was still married to one of his biggest karmics, and a lot of this current separation is about healing the stuff that he went through with her. And a lot of our relationship, our union, was characterized by his fears that I would turn into her, like somehow the loving self that I am. And I'm not perfect by all means, especially with my ADHD. I have my own shadows and my own flaws that are more than enough for somebody, but he was constantly worried that I would turn into his ex-wife because, that hurt a lot. But I was worried when we met because it's like we had such a connection, and I knew I still had self-worth issues because I questioned whether or not he felt what I felt. But, especially looking back at it now, it's like, no, that was real. There wasn't a fakeness to it. He felt it too. And especially lately, even there's been confirmations from people in his circle that, had talked to him that confirmed his stories when he told me at the time. He felt it too. But that was a big self-worth hit for me because it was like, well, but if this love is real and genuine and this magic of it is real, then why isn't he choosing me? And I had a very hard time when we were together because, especially being a Cancer man, he had a hard time letting go of past lovers, and a lot of it was self-worth issues on his end, and that reflected in my self-worth issues, and we triggered each other all the time on that. I'm a Capricorn, so I don't typically hold on to ex-lovers. I have one or two that I might talk to here and there, but when I'm done, I'm done. That's just, that's the way that I feel about it. It's not a thing that I have to force. It's just like, no, if it's done, it's done. That's part of how I can tell the difference between him being my twin and somebody else. And I think it's a big difference between love and limerence. Like, if you're in limerence, like, you could usually sleep with someone else or get with somebody else or just keep yourself busy enough, and then you don't think about the other person anymore. You just kind of heal, you move on, because love was not really there. It doesn't mean you didn't share loving moments or that you didn't have, that it was a bad relationship. It's just it was limerence. It was built on learning karmic lessons more than it was on unconditional love. Like, when you love someone unconditionally, that doesn't go away because life circumstances change. It doesn't go away just because new people come in and out of the picture. And actually, I definitely recommend reading into, if you feel called to, looking into Esther Perez. I think it's Perez or Perel. She does books like Mating in Captivity and things like that. And there are plenty of other authors who talk about it too. Like, the longer that you're with somebody, the more likely you are to see their shadow sides. The more likely you are to see like some kind of cheating. I like the way that she put it, in fact, which was like, you know, if you're, imagine that you're with somebody for 50 years, you know, if they cheat on you once or twice, or even if you cheat once or twice, but that's all that ever happens, you're actually doing pretty darn good. A lot of people get into a relationship and within the first year they have somebody do that, or a lot of people don't even make it that far through relationships. So we really got to like kind of change the way that we perceive things. We're human. Nobody's going to be perfect. And with love comes pain. You know, it's not always attached and it's not always perfect, but it's there. And there's a fun little kid running around outside the car. I love it. But it's there. And if we're constantly worried about getting hurt, we're not enjoying the love. And that's part of how you can look at limerence too. But my point in this video, though, is to get to looking at changing the self-worth stuff, because when you're with a DM or DF who is worried about, like when they have fears of abandonment, for one thing, look for the reflection, like, because that means you do too. And for me, this separation had helped me see that, is like when he was triangulating, and when it's like whenever we got closer to genuine commitment with, you know, like both feet in, no backup plan sort of thing, then this karmic energy would come up again. And it wasn't always him pursuing it. Sometimes, a lot of the times they would come in, but I could tell that he was manifesting it because he was afraid of it. Because anytime he'd given himself to somebody before, he got hurt, right? So anytime he felt that pull towards me, that karmic energy would come back in. And now I, for a while, was attaching that just to him. Then I realized, oh crap, I'm pulling that in too. Like anytime that he was being loving and being good to me and there wasn't anything happening, I was waiting for the other shoe to drop, right? I was waiting for where's this karmic or that karmic, or what if somebody new comes in, or what if there's somebody at his work, and like if I wasn't getting the level of attention that I thought that was appropriate for a healthy romantic relationship, I started looking for clues of who's he talking to, who's doing this, why isn't he feeling like connecting with me, why doesn't he want to go do this fun stuff. It was a lot of self-worth stuff, and I was threatened by a lot of other people. Now I'll give myself credit, I think partly being a Capricorn, I'm been more grounded. I've not taken it so much as a threat, as in like they could do something better than me, like love him better than me, but as a threat, as in they could trigger his shame cycles, they could trigger his guilt cycles, and then that's him not wanting to be abandoned by anybody. Then that comes back into our relationship because he knows I love him and I'll forgive him because I know how his cycles are. But that still gets very frustrating, and it still starts to wear at you. It starts to gnaw at you, and it's like, why are you choosing these karmic energies? And then when separation occurred, I did at first, because I only knew so much about the karmic that he chose, and I was like, like, is this, you know, is there a chance that, and I should preface, when he first got with his karmic, he started trying to show off and act as if he was doing everything that I'd ever asked him to do, having healthy boundaries, having goals, and then he was going to manifest the house that we'd been working to manifest, and there was talks about marriage when he had just left me after proposing to me and things like that. Like, it, you know, it was a challenge to say, like, I recognized on one hand there was no way that could be true. I've been in coaching, and I'm a nerd about human behavior, so I was aware that most of that was bullshit, but it still challenged me. It triggered a lot of my shadows, and I'm actually happy about that, because I have a lot better self-worth now. And it was so absurd that it made me realize that in the absurdity of it, how ironic was it that he was trying to impress me. And I don't think he realized at first that it was actually hurting my feelings in a number of ways. And I think that well, I mean, he's human. I think that there were many times that he felt jealous and envious that I was not jumping out into my own drama triangle, and that I was working on my own stuff, and that things were starting to get better. And then it was trying to look at, well, what is it that he could use to keep me there? Like, I mean, there was a lot of stuff, like there was a car that I was driving that was in his name that I'd been driving for years, and whenever he couldn't get me to give in to what his karmic wanted, or whenever I was pointing out like, hey, this, this stuff isn't acceptable, especially in terms of co-parenting, he would use the car to say, well, I want my car back, or, and it at first it was frustrating, and it made, I'd question like, well, what do you want? You just want to give this to your karmic, or do you just want to like give this to one of her kids, or what do you want to do with this? And that brought in my self-worth. And then once I made it through most of that stuff, then it was a lot of quiet and a lot of distance and a lot of like back and forth ghosting and things, and that made me question my own self-worth there too. But what I realized, the irony is, in just sitting with those feelings and not running from them, and not trying to interfere in what was going on with him, and just reminding myself like, he needs to learn this stuff. This is why I called for separation. I didn't know all of what needed to happen, but I knew that he needed to learn some stuff, and it's not in the way that I wanted it to go, but it's in the way that he needed it to go, and that I needed it to go. And I really appreciate the journey as it is, because I realized something, and this is something I think will be especially valuable to those of you who've been in your twin flame journey for like decades, not just, a few years. And for those of you who are just starting, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get wrapped up with your twin flame and then like 20 years later it's going to be hell, but you also don't know. And I don't look at it as a bad thing. It's a journey for a reason, and it's meant to bring you healing and to bring them healing, and then the two of you to bring healing to others. So just recognize, like, if you're just getting started on your journey, that you got a lot of fun and adventure ahead. And if you've been on the journey for a while, and you're in a situation to where your DM or your DF is with somebody else, and they're in a situationship, recognize that actually you are the threat. Now, you don't want to be a threat. Like, divine feminine energy or divine masculine energy does not look for win-lose opportunities, but it's kind of amusing, and it kind of helps the self-worth a little bit to recognize you are the threat. And it, like, your DM or your DF is not... Here's a funny reframe of it. They're not talking to you or ghosting you or making you a third party because they want to hurt you, or because they don't know any better, or any of that stuff. They're doing it because you're that irresistible for them. When you pull away, they want to talk to you again because they miss you, because you're an anchor point for them, because they recognize that they're screwing up. They're just not at a healed enough level to be able to bring it back. And a lot of that is spirit. It's not them. Many of them would come right back, but you both wanted healing, right? But what I recognized in my own journey is that, like, when I was with my DM, a lot of the karmics, like, they were in the background. The irony is that, like, I've always looked at it like there's no reason to create extra drama. Yes, there are times to put your foot down. Yes, you need healthy boundaries, and a lot of those we did not have. But I really, when we were together, I did not want to be the kind of partner who was like, you can't hang out with that person, you can't talk to that person, I don't like that person, they're not good for you. And trust me, he had friends and people in his life that I wanted to say that about, but I didn't want to be that person. I wanted to be the kind of person that was like, okay, this is the man that I love, and these are the people that he's choosing to be around. And I slowly started encouraging him, like, make new friends. That was a funny conversation, actually, because he took that as get rid of all your old friends and people. And I mean, in my head, I'm going, well, that would be nice. However, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying add new people to your circle, bring in new energy. And that started to help. That actually freaked him out too, and ended up being one of the precursors to separation. But what I recognized, though, through the separation was a very interesting thing, is that for the 14 years that we were together, and even to a degree the 5 years before that, when we were together, the karmic energies didn't really seem to want to come around. They did tempt him in some ways, but he was very good about tempering that. And the few times that I said something about it just bothering me, like, it just bothers me that this is going on, or that you're giving them things that I feel like belong in a relationship, a monogamous relationship, he would adjust that and change that, and I appreciated that. And the relationship became healthier than I realized it was. And the irony is like even his current karmic doesn't want to approach me. I mean, she'll talk about being all sorts of combative with everybody else, and from what I've heard, it's gone towards other people, but not towards me. And the same with the other karmics too. And I think a part of that is because I have embraced authenticity, and when you embrace authenticity, like nobody can have any blackmail on you. You know, nobody can really, if you're willing to say, yeah, I do that, I'm going to work on that. If you're willing to say, yeah, I did do that, and I'm sorry for that, and you're willing to talk about your own weaknesses as well as your strengths, then there's nothing that anybody can pick at you about. And when you have strong self-worth, then when somebody points out something that is a shadow for you, it doesn't weaken you. In fact, you recognize it's a strength, and you alchemize that into further strengths. I find it so interesting that the sun is in here and is like blocking my half of my eyes in this video. I feel like I've got a mask on, right? I'm like a superhero mask. But what I noticed though is that when we hit separation, all those karmics came in. All of them floated, every single one of them. And it made me laugh because I did some readings early on in the year that talked about a lot of this year was like Return of the X's sort of energy. It was like Star Wars, you know, Return of the Sith. And they all flowed back in. And there's been a ton, it's almost like they were waiting. And I used to have a fear of that because he would have certain energies come in every so often. And to me, it was like, they're checking to see if you're still happy or if you're single. And I tried to warn him. I was like, that's like, even if we did break up or separate, I wouldn't go for that. You know, that doesn't sound like, I didn't call it divine at the time, but that doesn't sound like divine energy. That doesn't sound like unconditional love. Like, I don't know, only you can know. But what I realized though is that I am the threat. Like I was worried about that before. Like, why are you not choosing me? Why are you not prioritizing me? Why are you not picking this relationship? And I realized that I was creating room for those karmics to be in there by being bothered about it at all, by thinking about it at all as a someone is better than somebody else sort of thing. And now to be in a place where I don't think anyone is better than anyone else. I think that everyone has a part and a piece to the puzzle, and that their journey is valid, whether it's in karmic energy or whether it's in divine energy or whatever's going on. It's all valid. And I could now talk about these experiences without feeling resentful or judgmental or critical or cynical. And I'm not worried about who might see them or where it might go. And the irony is that also is a power in itself. If you're willing to speak the truth, but you're not doing it from a place of being judgmental or trying to hurt somebody, that's a very different energy than somebody who's like, I'm gonna out you, you know, things like that. And I've been there before too. But I want you to really stop and think about it. If you are worried about competition, or if your DM or DF is choosing someone else over you, if you're thinking of it in that way, you got karmic energy to heal. It's about getting to a place where you feel good self-worth, where you feel loved by your twin flame, whether they're with you or not, and both in the 5D and in the 3D. Like, get out of the mindset where it's like, if they're not with me in the 3D, then someone must be better than me, or I must not be good enough for them, especially because if you're feeling that way, they're reflecting you. And when you start to heal your self-worth and you're no longer bothered by what happens in the 3D, and you could even look at your DM being in a situationship with a karmic and go, I genuinely wish the best for you. I really do hope that the relationship goes well. And even if they're with, say, a toxic karmic, if you can get to the point to where you no longer feel like you constantly have to say, this person is bad for you, or you're doing things that are hurtful, you know, like coaching them around it. Instead, you can simply sit back and embrace the absurdity that, yeah, it's silly and it's unnecessary and it's not great for them, but they're learning, and be a place where you can be proud of them. Like, you know, a lot of people would have given up a lot sooner, yes, and that's like good and bad, but a lot of people would have given up sooner